Welcome back, everyone. Hope all of you are doing good. Welcome to the lecture 2 of the course Strength of Materials, part 1. In the last lecture, we have seen what is mechanics. What do you mean by mechanics? And then when we associate mechanics with different types of objects or different types of systems, how that mechanics is called. That is, when mechanics is associated with rigid bodies, we call it as engineering mechanics. The study of mechanics is engineering mechanics. Now, when we associate this study with deformable bodies, then it is solid mechanics or strength of materials. In the same way, when we associate mechanics with fluids, then that study will become as fluid mechanics. So these things we have seen in the last session, and then we have seen that the design of any component or element or any structure can be based on two different perspectives. One can be strength based design, where our motive is not to exceed the maximum capacity of internal forces that a particular component can withhold. When we coming to stiffness based designs, there our criteria is that a particular given component should not cross a particular level of deformation, beyond which we will consider it as failed. So these were two criteria of design we have discussed when coming to strength of materials subject. Then we have considered, or we have seen few assumptions that we are going to follow almost throughout the courses. There can be certain exemptions in between where the particular thing is mentioned in the questions. Otherwise, we will follow these assumptions as it is. And when we discussed about these assumptions, then there was a question in the last session, why FOS, that is factor of safety. So welcome back to this session where we will start discussing these things. Now, in this session, we are going to study, the agenda of the session will be discussing what is why factor of safety is so much important, then what is load, and what are types of loading. So coming to factor of safety, when I say safety, say for example, understand this term safety like this. Say for example, we are going on a tour or a trip in our summer or in a winter, so whatever it is. So when we are going on a trip, say for example from India to some France or India to some Bangkok or anywhere, then we are going to need some money to purchase several things. May it be airline tickets, may it be food, may it be anything, and may it be due for stay or everything. So whatever it is, we need to have some money with us. Say $1,000, $2,000, $10,000, whatever it is. So when we have calculated what are the things we require and what those things may cost, then we get some amount like say for example $10,000. So are you going to take exactly $10,000 with you? No, right? So we will take some keeping safety things in our mind, like there can be certain emergency, there can be certain other external factors that we can't take into considerations, which can be anything. So for safety purpose, we will carry some $200 or $300 extra, which are more than what we have got in calculations. So the same way in design of perspectives also, we always consider a safety factor or factor of safety, where we will try to give that extra limit to what we have actually designed, that what we are getting the limits of whether stresses or limits of deformations, whatever I have mentioned earlier in criteria for design, whatever limits that we are getting, on top of that we will try to have some safety factor. So why is that required? Why? Because just now we have seen that there are these many assumptions that we are going to base our theory on. So whatever derivations that we are getting or formulas that we are using for our calculations while deriving what are stresses and deformations, etc., those formulas are based on the theory that we are practicing, and that theory is based on these kind of assumptions. In the real world, these assumptions are very hard to follow, and it is very seldom that we will find that our purpose is going to satisfy those assumptions. So because it is very hard to follow such assumptions, what we can do is not to make our study too much complex. We will simplify the things, we will get the things done. I mean, as per our calculation, we will get the limits, etc., whether it is stresses or deformations. On top of that, we can add some factor of safety. So these things will keep the things simple. Other thing is, human behavior is unpredictable. Say for example, you are designing certain bike. Generally the bikes or motorcycles are designed for two people. So one will be a main driver who is riding the motorcycle. The other one is a pillion rider. But when you go out in the market, do you see, you will get ample of examples or instances where we see 3 or 4 people are riding on the bike. So if as a manufacturer of the bike, if you are going to design as per the calculations that fit exactly for 2 riders only, then do you think when 4 people will start riding the bike at a time, will that be able to hold that weight? It will fail, right? When the bike fails, when it is carrying people on it, then definitely it can lead to loss of lives. So do you think that our calculations should be exact to what, I mean, our design should be exact to the calculations that we have? No, right? We need to have some safety to avoid unnecessary catastrophes or unnecessary consequences that may arise even due to unpredictable or indisciplined nature of the humans, even, or unpredictable factors that happens due to nature as well. So to taking all this, seldom finding of assumptions, or seldom finding that our assumptions are being satisfied, human unpredictability behavior, and natural unpredictable factors, or considering all these things, we have to have a factor of safety kind of thing on top of what we have actually designed, right? So that is the need for factor of safety. Then now coming to load. What is load? It can be a force or a couple which a particular member or a working member is subjected to during its functionality. So let us understand with this with an example. Here a kid is having a playtime or fun time by swinging on this particular swing. Now this purpose of the swing is what this particular girl is using for. Now when during that functionality, during the time in which this swing is put into its work, how it is put into its work, this particular kid has climbed on top of this particular base and she is having a fun time. So on this particular base that we are seeing, there is some load that is acting. What is that load being acting? The weight of this kid is acting on this particular base, or we can say that plank. Now that this force, external force that is acting on this plank, when it is being subject in its function during its functionality, that particular force we call it as a load. That is load acting on that plank or base, right? It can also be a couple. This time I have seen the weight of the girl, that's why it is a force. It can also be a couple. Again, couple we can make as synonym like moment, whichever we can use. It is not a very great issue here. We can either use the term moment or we can use couple. So those things we will see as we progress in our course, but for now you understand that it can be either force or a couple which acts on a particular member under study when that particular member is serving its functioning. That means during its functionality, right? That is the load. Now when we know what is the load, then the next thing will be study types of loads. This load type can depend, or these load types can be classified based on 3 things. That classification can be with respect to time, or that classification can be with respect to area, or that classification can be with respect to direction. Now one by one let us see with respect to time what kind of loads we have, with respect to area what kind of loads, and with respect to direction how this particular load is classified as. Coming to with respect to time, load can be classified as static or it can be classified as dynamic. Again further, what is static, what is dynamic? Static means with respect to time, load does not change. Load does not change. At t equals to certain seconds, t equals to t1 seconds, when you measure what is the load, the same load will be there even after at t equal to t2 seconds. It can be, say for example, it can be from 5 seconds, it can be some 100 seconds. So with respect to time, whether time is changing or not, this load is static. Now when we say dynamic, this means load changes continuously. Load changes. At this particular instant, t equals to t1 seconds, the load can be something like L1, load L1. At t equals to t2 seconds, it can be something like load L2. So this changes. L1 is not equals to L2. There is no rule that it should be equal. It continuously varies. So those are called dynamic. These static and dynamic are further classified. Further classified as static loads can be again dead loads. Can be dead loads, or it can be gradually applied loads. Don't worry, we will learn one by one. Gradually applied loads. Most of the times we will deal with dead loads and gradually applied loads in our strength of materials course. There are this with the dynamic loads we will deal with a bit lesser. Only in few topics we will deal with dynamic loads, but most of the times 99% of the cases we will deal only with these two loads, and mostly this one in our cases, most of the cases, right? What are these? We will learn shortly, don't worry. Now coming to dynamic loads can be two types again. One is fatigue loads, and the other one is impact loads. So fatigue loads and impact loads. Now what are these? We will learn one by one. Say for example, we are having a bench vise. Everybody might have done their practicals during their graduation or engineering, right? So during that time they would keep some metal block or something in between these jaws, fix that to there, and they would work on it with a file or something to make some grooves, to shape, make facing operation or whatever it is. So we will do some kind of machining manually by hand. We will fix that, we will grip that between these jaws. This one we call it as movable jaw. This one we will call it as a fixed jaw. Now how will we fix that particular block that we are discussing? We will use by manually using the hand. We will rotate this clockwise. That we will rotate the handle clockwise. As we rotate, this movable jaw gradually moves forward and grips this particular block against that particular fixed jaw. So we are not applying the force all of a sudden, right? At say for example t equals to 0 seconds, we started revolving this or rotating this. Slowly this moves. At say for example t equals to 10 seconds, this completely goes and grips this. Once we grip it, then we will keep it stationary, static. From t equal to 10 seconds onwards, say for example while gripping, the force is say for example 100 kilonewtons. From 10 seconds onwards, the force will remain as 100 kilonewtons, right? So this is something like this. Say we have a graph. So this is time, this is load. So up to certain time limit, we are not all of a sudden we are not applying the load like this. We are gradually increasing the load. Whatever is our target load that we want, from there onwards we will keeping it stationary. So it will be from here onwards, it is static part. So overall, during this part, when we are tightening it, loading this particular part into between these jaws, we are not going to put our actual function, right? We are not going to machine this particular block until and unless it is completely gripped, right? So in this part we are neglecting and we are considering from here only, from this part only, because from here only we are going to have actual function or actual purpose what we are intended to do. So in such way we are going to consider gradually applied load as static loads. Okay, now what is dead loads? Say this particular total machine, this particular vise is having certain weight, right? And this is the base. This total weight is passed to this base, and this base is fixed where? On this particular table, right? So what is the purpose of that table? To carry the weight of this entire thing. So whether you put the block or not, this vise has already been there for a long time and it will always be there. That means this particular weight of this block is always there on this particular table. So that kind of load we call it as a dead weight, right? Now so there is an examples we have seen regarding classifications of dead weights or dead loads and gradually applied loads. Now coming to fatigue loads and impact loads. Now when we try to Now when we try to understand dynamic loads, let us take these two examples where there is a wagon stationed on a particular rail track and there is another hammer that is striking this particular nail or screw downwards, right? So coming to the first example, as we see the wagon there, say for example it is being connected to engine and being pulled forward. When it is being pulled forward, so let us focus at this particular rail length of length L. When we focus here, observe one main fact, that this entire weight of this wagon is being stationed on this rail track based on these four wheels, two on this side and two on the other track, opposite side, which is being hidden behind what we are seeing now. So weight of this entire wagon is being transferred to the rails through these wheels, right? Now when this is being pulled forward, that means at instant t1 equals to some, say for example we are starting at 0 seconds, our study is being started at 0 seconds, say at t equal to 0 seconds or t1 seconds, this particular wheel is stationed at this particular part. So this particular part, this L, is being subjected to certain load L. We can call it as L1. Now immediately after next second, within seconds, what happened? Say for example t equal 1 second or t2 seconds we can call. This moves forward. Now what happens? Something like this. Now wagon is something like this. Wheel will be here, other two wheels will be there, right? So now at this particular point, this wagon, this particular wheel has moved forward and came to this position. That means here in this particular part there is no wheel or no load for that particular instant, that is load L2 is 0. Again at immediately after the next t2 seconds or t3 or sorry, this is t0, t2, that is this is t1, sorry, okay, this is t1 seconds, t2 seconds, say at third instant t3 seconds or say some 3 seconds or whatever. In that particular instant what happens? This wheel moves further. This wheel that has moved here at time t2 seconds will move at t3 seconds, after this will move at this location. That means at that particular location again this particular length we are focusing on is being subjected to certain force by this rear wheel that comes to this position. So again load will be L1. So at some one instant it will be L1, other instant it will be 0. Again at L1, L0. So something like that variation. It may not be 0, it may be some very low value. That depends. Nearly 0. So with respect, when we plot a graph like this, which is time basically, goes like this. This is a load. At some instant load is like this. At another instant load is like this. Some other instant again load is like this. Some other instant again load is like this. It may be like that when load is always positive. It may also happen in some instances, not in this example but some other examples. Load can be sometimes positive in first few seconds, in other few seconds it can be negative, again positive, negative. So that variation with respect to time, this load is continuously varying. It may vary in steps, it may vary continuously, depends. But that variation, when it is varying continuously, that we will call as fluctuating load or fatigue load. There will be certain mean about which this load is being changing. So that mean load about which this maximum and minimum loads will stay. So that is fatigue load, that changes with respect to time continuously, right? Now coming to this another example where this hammer is particularly striking this particular nail at instant, so it is an impact, right? All of a sudden we will strike this particular screw at this particular base head, right? That sudden impact that we call when we apply load. So when we hit it, we're hitting it, there is certain force that is acting on this particular screw head, so that is being transferred onto this entire screw and it is getting downwards, getting embedded into this particular table or any component. So that sudden impact with which we are beating the screw down, hitting the screw down, that striking force, we'll call it as an impact force. So impact force. There is a special case for impact force. Instead of striking it from certain height, say for example, from this height we are striking bringing the hammer to this to hit it. So this is the distance. Every time we are hitting this screw, we are taking the hammer back to this level and again hitting it down. So slowly we are hitting it down like this, right? Now every time we are taking this hammer backwards. So impact distance will be this much, height will be this much, h. Now this, if h is equal to 0, that means there we are directly keeping that hammer here and suddenly pressing it all of a sudden, not gradually, all of a sudden. If say for example 10 kilonewton force we are trying to apply, all 10 kilonewton will be applied all of a sudden. So that is a sudden force. So this is a special case of impact force. That same 10 kilonewton force can be applied from a height. We can drop hammer from there onto this nail from certain height. That when that height becomes 0, that means from here itself we are keeping the load here and suddenly we are dropping it. Say nail is there, we are having some hammer or force at a height h equals to 0. Height h equals to 0. All of a sudden we are dropping it. That means entire load, the 10 kilonewton or 20 kilonewton is dropping onto the nail, transferring to the nail all of a sudden. That is suddenly applied load. Suddenly applied load. This suddenly applied load is a special case of impact load, where generally impact load or impact force, this is calculated for certain height h. When that h equals to 0, the impact load that we call becomes suddenly applied load. Okay. So with respect to time, when we try to classify what are all the things we have seen, one is static, means in this within static again there are two things. One is dead loads, the other one is gradually applied loads, that we have seen. Gradually applied loads. In dynamic again, what we have seen that in dynamic loads there are two types. One is fatigue or fluctuating ones, and the other one is impact loads. And special case of impact loads, we have also seen suddenly applied loads, right? So these things we have seen with respect to time, load classification with respect to time. The next thing will be load classification with respect to area. Okay. So with area, say for example, we will with respect to area there are two things. That is, one is concentrated load, classification of load as concentrated load. The other classification is distributed load. What are these we will shortly know. Anyway, just now, for now you remember that there are two classifications with respect to area: concentrated load, distributed load. So again, in concentrated loads it can be either a force, concentrated force, or a concentrated couple or moment, whatever it is. In the same way, in distributed also there can be both force or moment, but the distributed, when I say distributed, the distribution can be uniformly done or uniformly distributed or uniformly varying. What are these things we will shortly know. There can be other case which is non-uniform. We will not study that in our strength of materials course. In this course we will only specify two things here: uniformly distributed and uniformly varying or variable. What are these we will study shortly. Okay, again, whether it is uniformly distributed or uniformly varying, in both the cases it can be uniformly distributed force or uniformly distributed moment, uniformly distributed force or uniformly distributed moment, or uniformly varying force and uniformly varying moment. It can be anything. So there are four variants. What are they? Uniformly distributed load, force or load, uniformly distributed moment, or uniformly varying load, and uniformly varying moment. So these things you remember now. What are these? We will shortly know, don't worry. Now coming to what is concentrated load and concentrated moment, load or force we can say. The force, specifically that force which we are subjecting onto a particular member when it is serving its purpose. That time we will call that force as a load. We have studied just now. Now to understand these things, let us take these two examples. Here we are taking an example of a chair. Now when someone sits on it or even does not sit, there is some weight for this chair, right? When someone sits on it, that weight also will be added to this particular chair weight of this chair. Now this is the ground that we are having here. To the ground, how this entire weight is being transferred? Through these particular 4 legs of that particular chair, right? Those legs are particular pointed. When this chair is stationed, placed on this particular entire room, this entire weight of the chair is transferred at these particular 4 points. So the loads that these points and the loads that these legs of the chair are exerting onto this land or this ground, that load is called point load or concentrated load, right? So that case, what we call those things, point load or concentrated load, right? Now next example, observe this table here. This table, this glass, everything, these objects kept on it, everything will have some weight, and this steel, everything have its own weight. Entire weight is transferred to these legs again, but here observe these legs are not directly placed on this ground, but both the legs are connected together and placed on a common platform, common flat, we call that as a flat, on a common bar, simply to say bar, placed on that, right? It is placed on that. So this entire weight of the table is coming on to this bar. Other side also same way it is there will be bar. So these two bars carry the entire weight of the table. So when we take the perspective of ground, on the ground, how this weight is applied? Not like in this case, but here this entire load is distributed along the length of this bar. So this is the flat, along the length of the flat it is being distributed, and also along the width, everywhere, the area, along this total area, this total load of this particular total table is distributed, and that total load is exerted onto the ground. So onto the ground, this entire weight of this table is transferred through this bar in a distributed manner, and that distribution can be uniform, we can consider. Okay, right? So that is a way. So in that way we have concentrated load, uniformly distributed load, right? Two things we have understood. So okay, there can be other examples also. When we say concentrated moment, say for example there is a particular shaft fitted on the bearings, and there is a particular gear. Connecting to this gear, there is another gear, another shaft stationed on a particular connected to a motor. Now what is the purpose of the motor? It provides us rotational motion to certain shaft. To that shaft, what happens? This gear is connected, so this gear also rotates. So a torque is being applied to this shaft by this motor, and the torque is being transferred to this gear using by the shaft. This torque that this gear, the lower pinion is having, we call that as a pinion, which transfers the torque to the another gear. So this is the driving member here, so we call it as a pinion. These things we will learn in the advanced classes of theory of machines. So anyway, now for example, this is a gear, just understand this as a gear. So since motor rotates this shaft, that gear is mounted on the shaft, so gear will also rotate. As the gear rotates, connected to that another gear is that this will also rotate. That will force this shaft to rotate, right? So in this case, what is happening? We are keeping them on bearings. For example, these are not bearings, we are trying to fix it. We are trying to fix this shaft, but what is happening? This gear is rotating. So we can say, for example, this is a fixed shaft on which this gear is there, and it is trying to rotate. So this is trying to twist this shaft, trying to rotate this shaft, but rotate is resisting that rotation. So that load that we are applying on this shaft with this gear is couple. What is couple? We have already learnt in earlier classes. So that couple that we are exerting on this shaft is at a particular point, concentrated at a particular place, right? So this is a long shaft, and the entire length we are focusing our torque on a particular length. That is why this is a concentrated couple or concentrated moment. If the same amount of torque, say it is 10 kilonewton meter, that same torque, instead of applying entirely at the same place, we are having a very broad gear, big gear. We are rotating that with our pinion. So the total torque, we are not focusing on at one place, but the entire shaft or at a reasonable length. So when the torque that we are applying is distributed across certain length, which is measurable or considerable, then we can say uniformly distributed moment or couple, right? So when we say concentrated couple, when we say uniformly distributed couple or moment, or when we say what is concentrated load, when we say uniformly distributed load, I think you are very clear about that. Now coming to uniformly varying, the same example, another example we can take, there is a fixed beam or a bar, or we can say beam. Now uniformly distribution, the same load, for example, the load that we were having here, the flat bar that we have seen, same thing in measurable way. When we say there is something, when we are uniformly, this magnitude at every particular point, say this is 1 kilonewton. In this way, the entire length is being covered, this 1 kilonewton, 1 kilonewton, 1 kilonewton. In this way, at every inch, every step, there is 1 kilonewton load. That means we can say intensity, weight intensity is 1 kilonewton per meter. Say for example, this is 1 meter. This is 10 meters. Entire length is 10 meters. If the intensity is 1 kilonewton per meter, that means that for 1 meter, the entire net weight is 1 kilonewton. So then for 10 meters, it will be 10 into 1, that is 10 kilonewtons for the 10 meters, right? So that is case of uniformly distributed load. So for every meter we consider, or for every elementary length we consider, the amount of load, that height is same. The load is same. The load, I am describing it by this length. To picturize you, to visualize what it is, this length. This length itself is nothing but that is just visualization. Don't measure it in meters or something. Just to understand that it is same, either at here this point or at this point, the entire length is, the magnitude is same. To visualize you, to make you understand that magnitude of the force, distributed force is same across the length. To make you understand that point, I am showing this as a length, as arrows. But actually that is intensity, the force intensity, right? So that is same throughout the length, that is uniformly distributed. So there is another case for the same member. It can so happen that it is gradually increasing. At this point there was no force at all. Slowly some point, and slowly increasing. The intensity is increasing length to place to place. And if that increase is linear, that is uniformly varying. Okay, if that increase is not linear, then it is non-uniformly distributed, or non-uniformly varying. Now we will not study that case here. We will study only uniformly varying case. That means that variation is linear. That means when I say linear, it means here in this case, whether you measure at L equals to 0 or measure weight intensity at length L equals to 10, wherever you measure, whichever cross section you take, wherever you measure, that intensity, if you measure, it will be some W equals to W naught kilonewton per meter. The W naught will be constant, fixed, same everywhere. But in this case, here we have some W, here we have some W, here we have some W. It is changing, and that change, what I have said, that is uniform. Change is uniform. The load itself is not uniform, but the change is uniform, that is linear. So that means this W will be a function of X. As we proceed along the length X, that change is linear. That means it is a function of X. Say for example, W equals to some 5x plus 2 or something. Example I am saying. function can be something like this. So linear function in x, that is uniformly varying. It is load, it is forces that I'm talking. The same thing can be torque also. When that variation is regarding torque or couple, sorry, moment or a torque, whatever it is. What is torque? All these things we will study as we proceed in the session. For now, you understand that that is a couple. That couple, in one instance, it can be shown as torque, twisting. If it is twisting, it is torque. Otherwise, it is bending. Twisting or bending. The couple can be both ways. Or couple or moment, whatever we call it, it is same. So this, if we are talking in terms of load, this variation we are talking in terms of load, that is uniformly varying load. If that variation is talking about, that focus is about moment, variation is regarding moments, then it is uniformly varying moment. Okay, hope you have understood that part. So simply to put it, what we can say, what we can have is, so simply to put it, when I say concentrated, just now I have said that it can be a concentrated load or it can be a concentrated moment. When I say load, say for example, there is a certain member, simply supported beam. These beams and all, simply supported cantilever, all these things, initially you have got an idea in engineering mechanics if you have studied. What are they? You must have studied. Simply supported. So when you take such a beam, when certain load is acting at a certain concentrated way at a particular location or a point, when compared to the entire length, then that is a concentrated load. In the same way, when you are having certain shaft and torque is being applied, entire torque, whether it is a 1 kilonewton or a 10 kilonewton or whatever it is, if the entire thing, the magnitude is applied at a certain cross section, then it is a concentrated moment. In distributed, what we have studied, it can be uniformly distributed load, uniformly varying load, uniformly distributed, uniformly distributed moment, uniformly varying moment. So when coming to uniformly distributed load, what we have seen, if there is again a simply supported beam, there is a weight intensity that is uniform across the length of the beam or particular member. This thing doesn't change, it is constant W naught. When I say varying, it can be either positive or negative. In this example, I am showing you with a positive thing. It uniformly varies. That variation is linear or uniform. So it gradually it is increasing in a linear fashion. That means it is a function of x. I mean x means in the direction of length. That is uniform varying load. Same way, uniformly distributed moment means, again, when there is a shaft or a shaft like element, if the moment that we want, say for example 10 kilonewton, entire net moment that we want on this shaft is 10 kilonewton, then the 10 kilonewton, instead of focusing on one individual location, if we are distributing it across certain area or certain length of the shaft which is considerable or measurable, in that case we call it as a uniformly distributed moment. And again, across this length, what the quantity, the magnitude at every location we are spending or expending is same. Here also moment same, kilonewton, here also kilonewton, kilonewton meter per meter, here also kilonewton meter per meter, the same magnitude is same everywhere. Uniformly varying moment means, for the same shaft, if we say frame net 10 kilometer we want, here we will take here starting point we will take 0, slowly we will increase the amount, the magnitude of the moment across this length. So this entire net 0 to this thing, whatever here the magnitude is, entire net torque when you continue, calculate, then it will become 10 kilonewton. So whatever the torque that is needed or that is being studied, if that is uniformly distributed, it will be equal in magnitude across the length. If it is changing linearly, that is uniformly varying moment. Now I guess you are clear what the concept is. So the next thing, with respect to direction, just now a little bit earlier we have seen that load can be classified on three ways. First classification based on time, where we have studied it can be static or dynamic. The second classification based on area, where we have seen it can be concentrated or distributed. And the third classification is based on direction. Based on this direction, it can be either normal or it can be either shear. Simply to put it, when there is certain element, so when you are pulling it like this, that means there is a cross section, right? Here everywhere we have a cross section, whichever cross section you take. So this here also same way, this is a cross section we have. On that particular cross section we are pulling it, right? There is an action, pull action. So to this cross section, our force, our load is acting normal. So when load is acting normal or acting in normal direction to the area of cross section under study, or to the given area, whatever it is, in that case that load is called normal load. It need not be pulling action, it can be even pushing also, but whether pulling or pushing, it is normal, perpendicular to the given area of cross section. Okay. Now coming to shear, here what happens is, here again this is a particular member, this is the area of cross section, here also we have area of cross section, and that way again everywhere at every location we have an area of cross section. When a certain load is acting like this in this direction, if this is the area that we are considering, for this area this load is parallel. So the load is acting parallel to area under study or area of cross section. In that case, in that scenario, that load is shear load. It is a cutting action that is happening. The best example is, say for example, in bridges, if you focus on a certain element, there will be certain, like this element which is bolted. In a simple way, we can say this is one element, there is another element. So these two are tied to this element using a bolt, and force will be applied like this. When force is being applied like this, here is a cross section of a bolt, here another cross section of bolt. What is happening? This particular thing is trying to cut this particular bolt parallel to its cross section, right? So the force acting in that area situation is parallel to the area. So what is happening? If this is a bolt, so there is certain thing like this, and there is another block like this. If you are putting force like this, for this block this is a pulling action, that means normal force. But when that force is transferred to this bolt, so for this bolt this is one area, this is another area of cross section, right? For this bolt, when we are studying this bolt, this load is acting parallel and is trying to cut, shear, what we say shear, this area of cross section. If we beyond certain limit, if we keep pulling, this bolt will break into three pieces. Okay, so this top part, middle part, and the bottom part, it will break into three pieces. That is cutting action. It is called shearing, and the force involved there is shear force or load. Okay, hope you are clear. Let us see some examples. Everybody is familiar with bodybuilding, at least if they don't have, or you don't have done in your real life, at least you have seen in somewhere. So when you observe there, this particular weightlifter is trying to lift this particular weights, this particular shaft on which this particular loads are fitted. This, okay. Now when he is trying to pull these things upwards, this is hand, this is the area of cross section of the hand. He is trying to pull upwards, this weight upwards. Now what will happen when he is trying to pull this bar upwards? This bar in return is acting certain force downwards on the hand. So we have to pull it upwards constantly. When we are trying to pull it upwards, what is happening to this cross section of area? That force, that weight of this entire bar is acting downwards. So to the cross section of area, that weight is downwards. So that is normal force. So when our study is on the hand, weight of this particular entire barbell or dumbbell, whatever it is. So that is downwards, right? So that is normal force. Now we consider this shaft. This shaft. For this shaft, what we have? We have weights at the two ends. So these two weights are acting downwards and acting parallel to the cross section of this particular shaft, right? Here also and here also. So if this is the cross section of the shaft, the weight of this particular weights is acting downwards parallel to the shaft, trying to shear, cut, separate out the parts like this. Separate out the parts like this. They are trying something. Action of that particular weights is something like that. So that force, the load of these weights on the shaft is shear load. Now you might have got what is normal load and shear load, right? With respect to direction. So another example also we can see. Say for example, this weight of this entire swing is transferred to these chains. The weight bearing items here is chains, and these are jointed at certain points. This is the entire length of that particular beam. On that beam only the load is acting on two particular points. So they are concentrated loads. Okay, they are concentrated loads, and also the chains, this weight of this the concentrated. And one more thing is with respect to direction, that is concentrated load is with respect to area on which they are. That is at a point instead of entire length. It is acting on a point. That is why it is a concentrated load acting on this beam. And what is applying that load? These chains. Okay, that is concentrated load. Fine. With respect to direction, when we come, this is the entire swing, right? And when the weight of this swing is balanced by these four chains. 1, 2, 3, 4. These chains. So these chains, the longitudinal direction of this chain is like this. And this chain, on these chains, say one element, this particular one chain, there are four chains that are tied. One chain we may take. So when we are taking that swing, that weight of that swing, some amount of the part of the weight is transferred to this swing, this chain. So weight is acting downwards and length of the swing is like this. So this is the longitudinal direction of the chain. So length of the chain is like this. When we zoom it, a piece of it, it is like this. On that, load is acting downwards or normal to this particular area of cross section. So for the chains, it is a tensile load that earlier I have told that it can be against the normal to the cross section. The load can be either pulling or it can be pushing. In this particular case, it is not pushing, it is pulling. And when that normal load, and we call that either it is a normal pushing or pulling. If the load is acting normal to the area of cross section, that is normal load. Now in this case, normal load acting here is the pulling load. Whenever the normal load is pulling load, I forgot there discussing that there. Whenever that normal load is pulling action, then we call it as a tensile load. Whenever that is pushing, in this case it is not pushing, anyhow I am telling that also here. Whenever it is pushing, that normal load we call it as a compressive load. Right? Hope you are clear. So again, getting things back. Say normal load, the load acting normal to the area of cross section. If that is pushing action, then we call it as a tensile load. If it is a pushing action, we call it as a tensile load. Or if it is a, if it is a pushing, we call it as a compressive load. If it is a pulling action, we will call it as a tensile load. We have to be very careful while dealing with whether it is a tensile or compressive. Generally, we take tensile as positive load, compression as negative load. Now, with respect to direction, those are the classifications. So, to dig deeper, when we take certain particular element like this or component like this, say a beam, rectangular beam, then I said if it is a pulling action, it is normal load. If it is a pushing action, it is a compressive load. If it is a shearing action, that is a shear load. That means parallel to the cross section, it is a shear load. Basic thing we have studied. To make it further classification, again, take midplane. there will be certain mid plane, right? In a vertical direction, there will be a mid plane. So across this width, say width W, from here, total width is W. At W by 2, we have mid plane. Similarly, horizontally also, when we see, if total depth is D, from base at a height of D by 2, what we will have? A mid plane, horizontal plane. So what we have? A vertical mid plane and a horizontal mid plane, right? Vertical mid plane and a horizontal mid plane. So now this area of cross section is this. So this one is horizontal mid plane that we are talking about. This is the vertical mid plane that we are talking about. So this vertical one is this one. When we are you might have completed engineering drawing. So this vertical plane, from this direction it is plane, but when we observe it from sideways, it will be a line. Similar way, this horizontal plane, when we observe from this direction, it will be a line. So this one is horizontal mid plane actually. So this is a vertical mid plane. So this vertical mid plane, when we are observing in this direction, this is what we get. When we observe in this direction, this is what we get, right? Okay. Let's not go into deeper into engineering drawing concepts. Let's know for now understand that this is one of the mid planes, and this is the area of cross section. In area of cross section, this mid plane is being viewed as a line, and this horizontal one is a line in both the cases, in both the views. Whether we are viewing in this direction or whether we are viewing in this direction, this horizontal plane is a line. So here also it is a line, here also it is a line, right? So those are engineering drawing concepts. For now, that is not our actual requirement. Now for this mid plane, this is a horizontal plane, this is a longitudinal axis of this particular member. If that pulling normal load that we are talking about, if that is a pulling one, let us it be P, pulling one, and it is acting along the longitudinal axis, then that P will be equals to axial tensile load. Further classification: the same pulling action is away from the longitudinal axis or its central axis. Say it is a Q. In that case, that Q will be eccentric. Whenever whatever element we are talking about is deviating from its symmetry away from the longitudinal axis, that we call it as eccentricity. So eccentric. So Q, the load here is eccentric load. What kind of load it is? Tensile load. So eccentric tensile load. Similarly, compression also when we talk, this here I say it is a load R, and there is another load which is acting like this. It is a load S. So this S is pushing this particular cross section. When we take, it is pushing the cross section into the cross section. That when into the cross section, pushing the cross section, this S, and it is along the longitudinal axis. That's why this S is called, or here we can write this S is called axial compressive load. And this R is also pushing this cross section, that is normal to the cross section, that is into the cross section, but it is away, it is distant, it is at certain distance from the longitudinal axis or central plane. So that's why this R is eccentric. It is acting at an eccentric location. So it is eccentric. And what is the nature of the load? Compression. So eccentric compressive load. Compressive load. So that is about axial tensile load, eccentric tensile load, axial compressive load, eccentric compressive load. Similar way for shear also. This is the vertical plane, vertical axis of this particular area of cross section. But that's for that central axis, if the area, that shear the load says it is a load L. That load L, if it acting like this, that is for this cross section, it is acting at central point, that load L. So that load L acting along the vertical central plane, that L will be called as transverse shear. What kind of shear it is? Transverse shear. Because if this is x-axis, this is y-axis and this is z-axis, for example, if this x-axis is treated as longitudinal axis, this both y and z are transverse axis. So this, since this L is acting in y, if we take this as a longitudinal axis, this y direction axis will be transverse axis, and in that it is simple transverse shear, since that is aligning with central vertical plane. Say if there is another force T which is away from central vertical plane, then that T will be, it is eccentric from the central plane, that way it is called as eccentric. Again it is acting in the direction, transverse direction, so eccentric transverse shear, right? So again, what is transverse shear, what is eccentric transverse shear, we have seen with the examples. Okay, so hope you are clear regarding these things with respect to direction. Also the classification of load with respect to direction, normal and shear loads. In normal, again it is tensile and compressive, and again further classification, if you see, axial tensile load, eccentric tensile load, axial compressive load, eccentric compressive loads. Again in shear also we have transverse shear loads, eccentric transverse shear loads. Now coming to little bit a proper description of what is concentrated load and concentrated couple. So say for example, there is a certain element or certain beam or certain shaft. Say for example, let us take a beam, cantilever beam. Cantilever means one end it is fixed, the other end it is free, left free. So this is a beam we have. Say this is x-axis, this is y-axis, this is z-axis. So when I say that, automatically if I am taking x-axis, say for example this one, actually central axis, that is x-axis. Say for example it is y-axis, it is z-axis. Now if there is certain load like this, like load P, that is called concentrated load. We are clear about that, right? Or even if a load is something like this, particular this point only it is acting, then that also we can call it as a particular concentrated load, normal load. Now instead of loads, when coming to couple, I told that this couple can be substituted to the term moment also. If that moment is acting about x-axis, that is for this area, it is parallel, that moment is parallel, that couple is parallel, the direction of that axis is normal, but the direction, the tendency, physical effect is parallel to the area of cross section, then that kind of moment we call it as a twisting moment or torque, twisting moment or twisting couple. Now for the same thing, that is when along the longitudinal axis, about the longitudinal axis, if the moment is acting. Now if that moment is acting about y-axis or about z-axis, what is happening if it is acting about z-axis? The effect, the physical effect is that it is trying to bend this like this. This area of cross, this area whatever it is, this is the main area of cross section. That area of cross section initially when you look in this direction, it was like this. Now after applying this moment, the tendency of the moment is that it is trying to bend it like this. The area which was like this initially, that is being bent like this. So this is bending happening when we are trying to rotate in around about z-axis. That is bending. So beam is bending. So that is called bending moment. So bending moment in xy plane. This is x, this is y. In this plane it is bending. The same way for y also, if we consider, when y also it will, if you consider, what's happening is something like this. Drawing is not proper. Something like this. So this straight line is getting bent like this. The straight line is getting bent like this. So in this, for this area, if you take, this is parallel to this area. So for this cross section, what is happening to this cross section, which was along the x-axis direction, that is moving away from the x-axis, that side. So that is bending. That bending is in xz plane. Bending is in xz plane. So this moment also is a bending moment. Simply a bending moment. So when you see about the three axes x, y and z, when you apply moments, one of them will be twisting moment, the other two will be bending moment. So these all are, what I am saying is, I am showing you in the example is concentrated at a particular location. In that case, it is a concentrated couple. If in case it is distributed across certain length or area, then that will be a distributed couple or moment. So hope you are very much clear with the concepts. Okay. So let us close the class here, session here. In this session, initially we have started with understanding that why we need factor of safety, because we can't assess or we can't dictate terms of human behavior. They can be always unpredictable and indisciplined. So we have to consider those factors in our design. So that we need to add factor of safety on top of what we have exactly calculated. Also, many assumptions, our derivations, calculations, everything are based on our theory, and that theory is based on certain assumptions. In real life, those assumptions are hard to find applicable. So that satisfying that assumptions is difficult in real life. So we need to add factor of safety to our calculations. The next thing, what is load? We have seen what is load. During the functionality of particular component, whatever loads forces or couples acting on it are called load. Now in that, load can be classified based on time, based on area, based on direction. Those classifications we have seen in terms as with respect to time, if it is static and dynamic. In their further classifications also we have seen. Then with respect to time, when we have seen that with respect to time we have seen that it is static and dynamic. With respect to area, we have seen that it is concentrated and distributed. And with respect to time, with respect to direction, we have seen that it can be normal or shear loads. Finally, we have seen further classifications of normal and shear as axial tensile load, eccentric tensile, axial compressive, eccentric compressive, transverse shear and eccentric transverse shear. Once we have completed the classification of types of loads or we have discussed about types of loads, then we have discussed about twisting moments and bending moments, how they work and how they act on a particular given component, right? So hope you are clear. Thank you. Let's close this session.